Hello and welcome to another episode of the Move with Momentum podcast. We have a special episode today. I am Bruce Breedlove. I have John Brooks with me as well. Say hello, John.
Hey, everybody.
So today we have our first special guest on the podcast. I believe it's episode 14. Today we have Isaiah Ellison, who is a PhD candidate in organizational psychology with the Chicago School of Professional Psychology. He's currently the recruiting and retention manager for a company called McCall Service. So Isaiah, introduce yourself to us a little bit more and tell us about your background, why you got into this track and what you're doing now.
Yeah, so originally from Virginia in a small town. It's kind of what I guess propelled me into I guess the interest in psychology, because there's not a ton of diversity and things like that in the town that I'm from. So I kind of got out into the world when I joined the military, and just kind of got hit with a water hose of diversity from that aspect, and I found it really intriguing as far as like the different personalities and characteristics that people hold from various different backgrounds, and how similar we are in a lot of the thinking and thought processes that we have. So it's kind of propelled me into the psychology realm. I got my undergrad in psychology while I was still in the military. Got out into the civilian world in 2017 in the business side, and decided to pursue my MBA. Then, I kind of transitioned back into my passion for psychology and merged the two together, which is kind of why I'm currently pursuing the PhD in business psychology. Essentially is what it is. But that gives you a brief overview of kind of what I've got going on in my background.
Yeah, so we talked offline, and John just discovered this, but you and I met on a softball team, a rec league softball team. So like, it's not very often that you're swinging and trying to hit home runs with a person, rubbing shoulders with someone who has the education level and the credentials that you do. So I'm honored and humbled to know you. Let me just put that out there. So the reason why I wanted to have you on is we've had conversations offline too about this. At Momentum, we are striving to change the way real estate is done in Northeast Florida. We have a unique mission that is customer centric and obsessed with the process and giving high level service, which will then translate into the real estate agent being extremely profitable. And then just a chain effect of just people's lives becoming better, wealth being built, relationships being built, lives being elevated. So, in an industry that we have 87% of agents failing in the first 5 years, 67% of agents not being trusted by the public, we have a huge mission here to change something that has been around for years and years and years. So I would love to get your insight on just off the cuff discussion of your perception of why is it that 4 out of every 5 agents fail and 3 out of every 5 aren't trusted by the public.
Okay, so I think that just not having any previous knowledge of the industry or anything like that, hearing those numbers, it makes me think that there's not a ton of, I guess, or maybe there's a lot of saturation within the industry. So basically, anybody can go and take their tests and kind of get their real estate license, and then there's no real way of saying, okay, well, we're not going to let this person into the industry, that type of thing. Just like if anybody could be a brain surgeon, we'd have an ungodly amount of brain surgeons that just aren't very good brain surgeons. So just by that logic in itself, you're going to have people that really aren't going to be good for the industry. And I think that's why you probably see a lot of people that are failing. And then you also see a lot of people that don't trust real estate agents, because you have so many real estate agents, and the level or the quality of those real estate agents is kind of diluted by the people that shouldn't really be into the industry.
That's awesome. So just like to back up here, Isaiah doesn't have any real brokerage management experience. This is just coming from off the cuff question. And I mean, I cannot agree with you more on that. The market has no standards. Brokerages have zero standards. Anyone with a pulse and a license, which costs about $1,500 to get, you can get it in about a week, can manage somebody's largest financial transaction from start to finish. And you're saying there's just people who are getting into the industry that never should have gotten in, or are no good from the start just because there's no barrier to entry.
Yeah, and I think that it's a combination of that and people getting into the industry for the wrong reasons. Obviously, everyone does what they do to provide for their families or to earn an income, but I think that when you get to the root of it, the people that are most successful are in their job or their occupation because they want to help someone. They have like an underlying goal as opposed to the financial side. Yes, everyone wants to make money, but when you're dealing with situations where you, like you said, you're handling somebody's like greatest financial decision, and dealing with that process, if you're only monetary centric, then you're not really appreciating all the things that go into making those decisions. If you're somebody that's more geared towards making sure that they have a good experience and they understand the situation and everything that goes into the process, you're gonna get more buy-in and positive reaction from any of your customers. Or so you're those are the type of people that are going to be most successful in that type of industry. And like I said, I don't have the industry knowledge that you guys do, or any experience like that, but those are the people that typically are going to excel in a customer-based industry like that.
So how do you know if somebody's like that? Like, how can you, before they enter the door, because we're the only brokerage in our market, just so you know, who has an actual standard, and people have to go through 3 cultural checks to be able to even come in here, and they have to have production standards. And we're the only brokerage that I'm aware of that has anything like that. Who are these, like, who are we looking for, and how big is that actual target populace in your mind?
So that's tough because I mean, well, on the front end, that's the answer is pretty straightforward. I mean, you're looking for somebody that is from a personality standpoint is, like I said, geared towards more towards helping someone as opposed to like, hey, I want to make more money. Again, everyone wants to make more money. That's a given. So if somebody comes to me and say, hey, I want to make $1 million next year, okay, that's cool. Me too. But what about helping somebody else, or helping somebody on your team, or educating someone on the prospects of real estate or the industry as a whole, as opposed to like, hey, how can I get this person to buy this house for as much as possible, as opposed to saying, hey, I don't think this is going to be the right investment for you. Maybe we should look at this offer over here, something along those lines. So it's really getting into, because everybody on their resume is going to highlight all the good things. I mean, that's a given. In an interview, I'd never go into an interview and say, hey, these are the things that I really suck at. Like, that's just not realistic. So whenever you're asking an interview question, trying to dive into more of the personality, or kind of how their line of thinking is what you want to look for to kind of differentiate the candidates that are going to excel in your brokerage or your industry, as opposed to somebody that's going to hit you with the ticky tack answers that everybody expects that they're supposed to just display.
Yeah, so it sounds like you're looking for more mission-based people rather than money-focused people, and I think that's a huge, yeah, that's great.
Yeah, and I mean, it can be a combination of the two. I mean, you could have someone that's it's more money focused, but still are mission based, and are still looking to educate other people or help other people out. Whether it's somebody in the brokerage, or somebody that's coming into the industry, or somebody just like, hey, I don't know anything about real estate. I want to buy my first house. What are the first steps? So I mean, it could be a combination. It doesn't have to be one over the other, but it definitely can't be money focused, I feel like.
Yeah. So as someone who does the cultural checks, Isaiah, I've had people come across my desk who absolutely say the right things and give you the ticky tack answers, but then step out of that. They join the brokerage, and they step out of that, and there's just an absence of action behind it. So like, what do we do as an organization to then make those subsequent checks? I mean, are we constantly going to scrutinize these people? Is there more to it? Is there, they have more going on in their life? What is the standard? Like, do we keep the standard going forward, or is this just an initial check we do and then kind of give them the leeway? Because we, as at Momentum, like we want to keep up the culture, but we also at the same time understand that life happens. So like, how do we best as an organization make sure that stays closely knit and tightly wound like we intend it to be?
So I think that as far as people coming into an interview, and then stepping out of that interview and being a completely different person, that's something you're going to deal with across any industry. I think and everybody's going to be different. Everyone's going to interview differently. Everybody's situations are going to be different. Coming out of an interview, I might have the worst day of my life the day after I had an interview, and it's just going to completely affect how I work for the rest of that week or that month, or who knows. But I think that one of the things that I like about your brokerage and the things that you guys have been doing, from what I've seen, is you're more about the employee. You guys have like almost like a tribe, and I'd say that like with a big smile on my face, because that's one of the things that a lot of companies don't really put emphasis on, is basically building up, like you said before. You guys want to make it to where your real estate agents aren't in real estate for the rest of their careers. And like hearing that is like one of the things that I'm like, whoa, that's amazing, because most companies are like, I want this person to stay here, break their back for me, and continue to bring in more dollars for me. And it's not about developing that person or helping them grow or making sure their career is going in the right direction. And I think that's one of the things that you guys are really, really good about, and it's going to ultimately make you guys successful in the long run. And this is, again, I don't have that industry knowledge or insight, but just from a psychological standpoint, and why people stay in the jobs that they stay in, and why retention is good or bad. You guys are hitting all the right marks on paper for what a company should be doing, as opposed to just saying, okay, well, make me more money. Like you're like, hey, I want to educate you so you can make more money, and then you don't have to work for me anymore.
Yeah, that's a huge differentiator. We're doing this to help the real estate agents think more like business owners rather than staying in the role of being a real estate agent for the rest of their life. Because we come across it too often. An agent who's been around for 20 years and is flat broke, owns no investment properties, out there doing open houses at 70 years old during COVID. It's just like you just were like, if only we had met 40 years ago, your whole life and what you would be doing and your lifestyle would be totally different, because we're so focused on, number one, providing great service means that you're going to get the repeat, referral, and review business. And that will create sustainability in your organization. And the sustainability will lead to the profit that you're seeking. But if you start with profit first, then in the money grubbing, people can, number one, they can smell the commission breath, and you're just doing it backwards. You should be getting into a service industry to provide service, and you do a good job at providing service, and you make more money. The thing that we're coming across is that we're denying like 60% of people that talk to us because they don't care about the customer. And guess what? Those stats exactly line up with what the public is also saying on the National Association of Realtors, where 67% of people, don't trust real estate agents. Well, the public's right. Like generally the public, gets some things right, and they're right on this. So what can you do from an organizational standpoint to change this? Because that's our mission, is like, how do we get like the really good agents that care about the customer experience and give them the tools to leverage and scale, and try to push out all of those 67% that should not be in here? And our number one way is creating our own tribe that, can do this. But is there a way that we can do this on a larger scale? Even if it's agents outside of Momentum that are really good at service, we also want to support them and like welcome them into the tribe, even though they don't hang their license under us, because again, we're mission based. Maybe they'll come to us in the future, but we just want to do good business with other agents who do good business.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. That's amazing. And the fact that you're willing to bring people in outside of your tribe is one way that you're going to really affect the industry as a whole. I think that the fact that you guys are putting these, I guess I won't say roadblocks, but you're putting in these checks and balances in place, and making sure that you're bringing in the people that should be there is one way that you're going to really change the industry, because ultimately word of mouth is going to travel, and people are going to be like, hey, I need to be part of this brokerage. And eventually the competitors or the other guys are going to be like, hey, we need to really rethink how we're doing this, because these guys are going to take our spot. Like, these guys are coming for us. And that's ultimately like just doing what you're doing and continuing to push that narrative and push that out there to people is ultimately how you're going to make the biggest impact on the industry. Obviously it's not going to happen overnight, but as you guys continue to grow and develop, which, I mean, the short amount of time that you've got the company going, I can't believe how fast it's like taken off. Like, the momentum, pun intended, is incredible, man. It's insane, because every time I talk to Bruce, he's like, yeah, we're doing this and this, and I'm like, man, like, the first time he told me about it, like, we didn't really know each other, and we're just having a general conversation, and I'm just like, man, this sounds amazing. Like, you guys are going to do great things, and it's the proof is in the pudding, man. Like, it's all there. So I think that staying the course is ultimately how you guys are going to change the industry's narrative.
Yeah, and that, John, the conversation I had with Isaiah was shortly after you stood in my kitchen and said, "Hey, we have this idea for this, and we want you to come on." And I was like, "I don't know." So I'm still mulling the idea over too. And Isaiah's, and I just met this guy. He's in there freaking out in a bar after one of our softball games. So I'm like, "Oh, this guy knows something about something." So maybe we are onto something. So I want to switch gears just a little bit. So as an organization, we talked about, we want to change the industry, we want to bring in the right people, but not necessarily as a real estate brokerage, Isaiah, as just someone who knows the psychology behind why people go to a company and stay at a company. What's the number one way to retain an employee or someone you partner with?
So the cliche answer is to pay them more, but that's one of the lower level factors on why people stay with the company. Actually, that might be the reason they ultimately decide to actually leave, but that's not the deciding factor. That's not the reason that they prompted that thought of changing. Usually, it's the lack of, I guess, investment in their career and their future. That's, like I said, that's one of the things that you guys are really adamant about, and I think that's why you're seeing that your retention is so much higher than the industry average. Not just the industry average, is like national average in business, or I guess the workforce period. But you guys are investing in the futures and the career of your employees, and that's one of the chief reasons that people don't stay with a company. Another factor is the leadership, the management. I think the cliche saying is, people don't leave companies, they leave bad managers. So I mean, that's another huge factor. Benefits, people tend, if there's somebody is offering better benefits over here, then of course I'm going to be like, yeah, I can get healthcare over here, and like, the job's about the same. Why would I break my back over here and not have the same amount of benefits that are offered here? So it's just educating people on the benefits that they do have. Also, there's companies that offer benefits, but people don't utilize them because they don't know the benefits that are offered. The education that you guys provide, that's a benefit. A lot of real estate agents don't realize, hey, like, you guys can come over here and learn from us and grow and develop your career, where other real estate brokerage, they might not promote that, or they don't say, hey, these are the things that we offer.
Got it. So that's really good. So investment in career in the future, leadership and management, and then the benefits. Investment in career in the future. I mean, that's our number one thing. We want our agents, we want to create like 10 millionaires over the next 5 years through our model, and then help them get to the next level. So like at every level of your production as an agent, we have a different financial model that we encourage that you explore. And then you can also get into different groups with other millionaires. And we have a path all the way up to 30 mil. And I'm on that path. I want to get there. That's my goal. So putting that out into the world, I'm super excited about. And the reason I want that goal is so I can get there and then pull up the people behind me and help them get there faster. So it's all about their career and future. We want them to become real estate investors. Leadership and management. I mean, me and Brittany and Bruce were valid. We've run a team. We've become #1 in 3 years at one of the top companies in the area. And then we opened up our own brokerage. It's going to be top 10 in the first year. It's going to be a top 10 brokerage, which is fantastic. And what we do is we bring in outside voices, not just our own, but we want to bring in people from other areas and other experts like you to come share their perspective with our tribe, which I think is really cool. And then for the benefits is for the majority of real estate agents listening, we're about 1/3 to 1/2 the cost of a big box brokerage. And we're much more hands-on and valid than the other leaders at the other organizations. And I'm not saying that to put down the other leaders. It's just when you are in the sales business, you want to learn from somebody who's extremely valid, because if you learn the wrong stuff and do it the wrong way, that can really impact your financials down the line. Or if they have you focusing on something that's not important because the market's constantly changing, you need to figure out who's on the forefront of this stuff and who's way behind, because the market's going to continue to evolve. And so I think that's where we have an advantage, is that we're on the forefront, putting the pieces of the puzzle together to maximize the service and the value to the customer.
I love it, guys. So I have 2 more questions I want to ask Isaiah, and one I didn't even plan on because I want to touch on something you said earlier that has kind of like, I'm fixated on it. But so piggybacking off that last question, you say that people as employees or as partners are going to stay somewhere where there's most investment in their future. They're on a path to success. And John can attest to this. What I find in recruiting conversations is that agents partner with a brokerage who provide them absolutely no value or very little value, especially compared to the cost of being there. So why is it, if that's the truth, which it is, as an expert, you've said it is, why is it that in our industry, why do you think people stay where they don't get any value?
Hold up. Before you answer that, Isaiah, this is like, in my mind, this is perceived value versus actualized value. So a lot of agents, they see the shiny object and they're like, oh, that sounds great. And then they end up losing a substantial amount of their paycheck that they've earned and handing it over to somebody that basically did nothing. And that's the difference between the two in my mind. Sorry, Isaiah.
No, you're right. It's the grass is always greener phenomenon. You go somewhere and you're like, hey, this is going to be great, and then you realize that it's not that great. But to revert back to the original question, I don't even think it's industry based. I think that it's more just human nature. I mean, I can speak personally to myself. I Like I said before, I grew up in a very small town, and up to a certain point, like I was comfortable doing what I was doing. I didn't have to worry about anything. I wasn't, pushing the envelope, as some people would say. And then something clicked, like, hey, this is not what I want to do. Like, this is not going to get me to where ultimately I want to be. And then I had to really fight to break that mold and step out, and joining the military kind of forced me to do that. But I know I see so many people, and you guys can probably attest to this too, where you see people that you went to high school with or school with or whatever, and they're doing the same thing that they were doing 10, 15 years ago, because it's comfortable. They might have the potential to do so much more, but breaking out of that box and really, forcing yourself to do something that's uncomfortable is so hard, because at the end of the day, it's comfortable. Like, why am I going to make myself uncomfortable when I'm good doing this? So that's one reason why you see people staying with companies or staying in a situation that's just, it's not really benefiting them, because, they've done it for so long. They're comfortable. They know what the daily responsibilities are going to be. They know that they're not really going to be challenged, or, if they are challenged, it's going to be the same challenge that they faced yesterday. So they know exactly what to do. So, I mean, that is, I think, the chief among why people stay in a company that's not really going to benefit them. Another is they're not educated. Like, and not to say that they're not smart or anything like that, but you're ignorant to what's out there or what other options are out there. So there's nobody really saying, hey, you've got all these abilities, but you're not utilizing them. The company's not utilizing them. So why not, venture out and try something new? And they don't have anybody there kind of pushing them. And I think one of the things that, and maybe you guys have talked about this before, but it's the people that you put around you, the people that you surround yourself with. You want people that are going to either be where you want to be, or at least striving to go in the same direction. So, I've got some of the closest friends I've ever had in my life are the great people, but they're not doing anything. They're not ever going to push me to do more. So when I'm telling them, hey, I'm gonna get my PhD, like I'm gonna do this and that, and they're like, oh, okay, like that's cool. And there's no like excitement or anything. Like whenever Bruce was telling me about this momentum, I was like, man, that's awesome. And I don't even know this guy at this point, but I'm like, that is amazing because like hearing people succeed and doing more and striving to do more, it like pumps me up. It gets me motivated. Just listening to your podcast, like I'm like, man, I'm gonna go get my real estate license just so I can join momentum. Like, so like it's more about breaking out of that and surrounding yourself with people that are like-minded and want to do more than just nothing.
That was beautiful. I mean, like all of that, like I want to write, I'm like furiously writing notes. You can't see me here doing it, but I'm writing notes. Breaking out of your comfort zone. I mean, comfort is the enemy of success, especially in sales. You can't, it's not like a W-2 where you can hide within an organization and still get paid, still get the benefits and, all that kind of stuff. So I think the lack of education and the ignorance of the options out there is our number one thing. Because we provide more value. There's no question. I mean, it's hands down our value versus the other options, at least in our local market, is the best for the price that we're offering it for. And so I think what can we do to reach those people who should be with us, that do care about the customer experience, that do want to become profitable, have the ability to do it. Maybe they don't have the tools or the tribe or the energy that we transfer to those people on our team. Because I can tell you, I mean, we've done over $150 million in sales and 600 transactions since May. Okay. Like that is mind blowing to most people. It might be a record. I've been talking to some of the best people in the country and they're like, that's insane. I don't believe you. I don't believe you. And so here we're saying, well, we still want to bring in more people into our tribe and we want to influence and have a bigger platform to be able to advance their career and their family dynasty, basically their financial dynasty. And so we're unable to really find that right now or be able to get over that hump of putting our message out. And maybe it's just like you said, maybe we just need to continue doing what we're doing and putting it out there and see who's attracted to it. Maybe there's not that many people who are actually attracted to that conversation. But I'd love your thoughts on that as well, because I would imagine that there's a limited number of people who are thinking like you are. Like you just said, you wanted to go get your PhD and your friends were kind of like, oh, whatever. Well, that just means you have the wrong group, but there could be this whole other group out there. How do you go find that group? How do you go find those people around you that are going to really care about your success and push you? Maybe like, oh, like PhD, that's great. Tell me more about that. Where are you going to do it? What are you going to do after you do it, the PhD, and really future cast, right? So that's just finding a new tribe. So how do you go about getting that tribe going and finding those people who share the similar values as you?
I think it happens organically. I think once you start kind of putting it out there and making the steps or taking the steps to really propel yourself in that direction, you're gonna encounter people along the way that are either on the same similar path or can appreciate the things that you're working towards. And I think it just happens naturally because you're going to attract those people. Just like if you're hanging around in your town doing nothing, you're going to attract people that are hanging around doing nothing. So I mean, I've gravitated towards Bruce because he has that mindset that he wants to do more, and so we just naturally came together that way. There's other people on the softball team that we joke around with and kid around with, but the relationship that Bruce and I have kind of developed along the way, I think, is large in part because we have a similar mindset as far as that goes. So I mean, I think it happens more organically. And like I said, it's as you continue to stay the course, you're going to see more people gravitate towards you. And then as obviously as your company grows and people are like, hey, what's this momentum company about? And people start really asking questions and seeing that, then you're going to see the people that are more like-minded kind of gravitate towards what you guys are offering that they might not understand right now, but 6 months or a year from now, they're going to be like, wow, I need to be part of that group. I need to be in that tribe.
Yeah, I know from personal experience, Isaiah, and I completely agree with you. As my mind is open and John has witnessed my, transformation over time, I found that like I feel this very palpable magnetism towards someone who shares the outlook. And when you and I talk, like we can't even sit still. We're like, we're like the energy, right? You just can't do it. So I completely agree with you. And to John's point, like there are groups to go out and find those people like Abundance, and there are people the organizations that are put together based on that. But like in my life, I've found that it just happens, and you meet that person, you latch onto them, and then you just feed off each other, and then that parlays into something else, which probably isn't. So I completely agree with you, because that's, in my own experience, that's what's happened.
Yeah, and I think so. Like, I'm not in the real estate industry. I don't know how many times I've said that already, but um, you guys motivate me even to do more in just the realm that I'm currently in, or the career path that I'm kind of following. The idea, because ultimately, I want to finish my PhD and start my own consulting firm or something along those lines. But seeing the growth that you guys have had and the motivation and just kind of the way that you I guess operate, and it gets me excited to the point where I'm like, man, I want to do this and I want to do this and I want to do this. And it has nothing to do with your industry, but just being associated with you and seeing that growth, just like I said before, it pumps me up. So like, it just happens organically. It's natural. I met you for a reason. So.
I mean, that brings up sounds like a new business, Bruce. Maybe we open this up to all business owners, not just Momentum, because what we're looking to do is open eyes to possibilities, right? Like everything is possible. And when another entrepreneur sees another entrepreneur having success, they are gravitated towards that. In every sales business, or every business is operated exactly the same, right? There's a lead funnel that comes in, you qualify, blah, 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 blah. It's exactly the same business all the way through. And so basically what we're learning in this brokerage business, in the mortgage business, and the insurance business, all these different businesses are completely transferable to any business. I mean, any business that takes the approach of customer obsession is going to win over time. And the convenience and the responsiveness, speed, all of those aspects to it. So maybe, Bruce, maybe we need to open the door to other business owners. And here's a challenge on this podcast. If you're another business owner outside of this, and you want to have a conversation with Momentum or me or Bruce or anybody in the leadership team, please reach out. We'd love to connect with you. Again, we're looking for people like Isaiah who wants to go eventually have their own consulting company. I think that's awesome. We'd love to learn more about that, Isaiah. Figure out what you want to do, figure out maybe there's somebody we know in our network who can help you get there. But we're just excited to partner with other people who, again, like the energy is just really good, and we all lift each other up rather than lift each other down or keep each other comfortable. And I think that's a really cool thing to bring up.
Yeah, and so just to tie a really nice bow around this, Isaiah, this is exactly the value I knew you could bring to this conversation because of the way we make each other feel. But like you not having a background in real estate, that's not the point here. It's you're an expert in the psychology of what, like the behavior of people, why they do what they do, right? So we're finding out here that this is applicable across the board, and it's a way of living. So I want to thank you for spending time with us. Like this was an amazing conversation. Like I'm amped up. I don't know about you guys, but I'm amped up from the last half an hour. So thank you for joining us. Like what a great way to have our first guest on here.
Yeah, Isaiah, man, I know we haven't met in person, but after January, I'm breaking free of my cage, and I would love to go grab a drink and connect and figure out, more about you and your goals and what you're looking to do with your life. That's what stuff that energizes me, and I like other people who think like that too. So I'd love to connect.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Thank you again for both spending some time with us. And that's the newest episode of the Move with Momentum podcast. Thanks for joining us, guys.
Thanks, guys.